get the show on the road. Okay, so starting today, let's start with a good old multiple choice question. In the previous lesson, we spoke about solving quadratic equations, and we spoke about factorizing them, and often we got to the stage. I want to know, can you tell me, thinking back to the last lesson, which of these 4 options do you think is correct? And you can put it in the chat. Do you think it's A, B, C, or D? Yeah. Trevor, what's your question? Trevor, I think you need to unmute. If you unmute yourself, then we'll hear you. I'm trying to unmute you, but it's not going well at the moment. Can you? Oh, there we go. Hey, Trevor.
So, yes, hello, sir. I was trying to answer the question.
Okay, go ahead. Which option do you think it is?
My answer, I think it will be B.
B. Okay, let's see if I agree with you. So I haven't done this question yet, but what I would have done is I would have split these 2 pieces, and then I would have got x is 1/4, or x is -6/5. Yeah. So I would agree that it is B. Okay, and I have a look. In the last lesson, we spoke about a 4-step process. So step 1 was, is it in standard form? Is it factorized? Step 3 was to split and make equal to 0. So I'm going to say split and make equal 0. And step 4 was solve. Now, in this question, it was already in standard form because there's a 0 on the one side and it's been factorized. And all I need to do was the split. So 4x, there's the 4x. And I did the same thing here. And then I found my answers. Okay, thank you, Trevor. That was great. Can we do another one? Are we feeling okay? Thumbs up if you're feeling like, even if you didn't understand it, now you see where the answer was. Thumbs down if you're like, oh, I'm very confused. Just a quick little check-in. Okay. So let's take this idea and extend it a little bit. What if I told you, here is another quadratic equation, and I want you to solve this one. And for bonus points, if you tell me in the chat what's a bit different about this one, or you put your hand up, maybe you can just tell me what strikes you as different about this one. Or where to? What do you think is different about this one?
Sir, hello.
Hey.
I think it's because it's the difference of 2 squares, so it'll be different.
Okay, I'm with you because I'm remembering some factorizing techniques. There's different factorizing techniques. There's highest common factor. There's difference of 2 squares. There's trinomial. There's something called grouping. And we'll stop there for now. And so what you're suggesting is a difference of 2 squares. I do see the square here. I see the 4. I'm a little bit worried about the x. But I think you're on the right track. I'm just not sure I completely agree difference of 2 squares. Let's have a look. Felile, what do you think?
Hello, sir.
Hey, what do you think for factorizing here? What would you do?
I would say that first of all, we don't have the b. So the standard formula is ax squared plus or minus plus b plus c. So we don't have the b. So I think that b will be equal to 0.
Yeah.
There's no b, but we have the c.
There's no c. So I would suggest that you can't use these two
the c, yes.
in this question.
Yes.
So now which technique do you think we would use to factorize?
Maybe we can use the quadratic formula. I don't know.
Okay. So We could, but I mean, we haven't really got to that yet. I was going to think, couldn't we use the highest common factor of x? And couldn't we factorize this by going x times x minus 4?
Yes.
Okay, now when we do that, I want to see, what do we think the answer is to this question? We'll put it in I see in the chat there's some A's. What do we think the answer is? Some D's, some B's. What do we think the answer is? So step 1, standard form, yes. Step 2, factorize. Step 3 is split. So for step 3, I think we say x is 0 or x minus 4 is 0. And then for this part here, we say x is 4. And so my two answers are going to be 0 or 4. And so the correct option is going to be D over here. And so the focus of today's lesson is going to be bringing together quadratic equations with different factorization techniques and learning how to solve them. Now, in later lessons, we will learn about the quadratic formula and all that stuff, but it's also important you have a solid base in solving quadratic equations using factorizing. And so the answer for this question is D. Okay, Alwan, there's a question. Let's go to you. What is your question, Alwan?
I was just going to answer a previous
Perfect. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Alwan. I'll give you a chance a bit later. We lost you there for a second. Cool. Okay, so what are some of the techniques we need to be aware of? So we need to be aware of a couple of different techniques. And again, I'm not going to explicitly cover these today. They're going to be part of the questions, but here are the 4 kind of main ones. So just take a moment to look at them because they are going to come up later today. So this is called taking out the highest common factor to factorize. You'll notice that the highest common factor in this one was 3x. And then I fill out the next bracket by saying, well, what do I need to have here so that if I multiplied it out, I could get back to the original? Difference of 2 squares always has this double bracket and a minus plus, and then the square root of the first square, and then the square root of the second square. Factorizing the trinomial, we've done a lot of recently. And if you weren't here for lesson 1, I would say look at that because we really did spend quite a lot of time there. And then method 4 was something called grouping. And it's almost like highest common factor, but like a different variation of that. So I'm not expecting you to read everything on the screen. It's a bit of a text overload, but I can zoom in a little bit more. Is that stuff, give me a thumbs up if it's vaguely looking familiar. Like you've seen it once upon a time in a land far, far away. Or maybe you've seen it in a land nearby. I don't know. But I just want to make sure that you are, like you've heard of this stuff before. Okay, now remember there's a 4-step process. The 4-step process is it in standard form? Okay, is it factorized? When you factorize, we could use any of these techniques. Then step 3 is to split and make equal to 0. And step 4 is to solve. There are different ways this can go down, but when you're solving a quadratic equation, that's going to happen like 100% of the time. So I want you to watch out for those 4 steps today. Cool. Loyolo, let's go to you. How can I help you?
Hi, sir, can you hear me?
Cool. Very good.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay. Sir, I just wanted to ask you, I know this might be an embarrassing question, but
No,
what does it mean? What does it mean when it says in standard form?
Okay, standard form, that's actually a flippin' good question, so thank you for asking. So standard form means when you move all the terms to one side, and normally you'll have an equal 0 on the one side, and then you'll have all the terms on the other side. Often standard forms get called this, but the A, B, and C value can take on different values. So you can have things like 2x squared plus x, and then the c is 0. But basically, that's what I mean by standard form. Does that help?
Oh, okay. Yes, thanks, sir.
Perfect. Awesome question. I just want to give you a shout out because that's how we learn, right? By asking questions and clarifying vocabulary and stuff like that. Okay, let us start by doing question number 1. Let's do question number 1, chop chop. See what you do for number 1. See what you get. You can tell me in the chat. So number 1 does look kind of friendly. So it's already in standard form and it's already been factorized. So it's actually quite a friendly equation. And you can almost do the split part in your head because you can go. And I just want to point something else out. You can check if you got the right answer. Because if I take like -3, for example, and I put it back in the equation, like what is -3 plus 3? It's going to be 0. And what 0 times anything? It's 0, which means that I've made my equation true. And the same thing is true for 0. If I put a 0 where the x is, 0 times, it doesn't matter what's in the bracket. 0 times anything is 0. Jada, because you have to include this x on the end here. Like if this was a 0, then that would also be a valid solution to the equation. Because what is a solution to the equation? It's just it's a number that makes the statement true. And if I put this in, so if I had 0 times 0 plus 3, would that be equal to 0? Well, yes, because 0 times anything is 0. It's a bit of a weird idea, but yeah. Let's do number 2. And while you're doing it, I would like somebody in the class to maybe point out what is different about number 2 and any things we have to watch out for. Maybe just put it in the chat. I'll read it out. But number 2 looks similar, but somehow different. And I'd love it if someone could put in the chat anything that they notice. So if Fateko has said it's equal to 12, not 0, I think you're onto something. It's actually not in standard form. And so the question is, and this is for you, how do we get it into standard form? And I want to give you some time to do that. So the honest truth is it's not in standard form. And so you need to think about, I would suggest that multiplying out and moving everything to one side would be a good idea. Give that a go. See where you get.
Mr.
Mercedes,
Ace,
I agree. Yeah.
can you please explain to Jada why it wouldn't necessarily be okay to divide by x on both sides in number 1?
Yeah, okay, that's an important point. So the reason, Jada, is that you would lose one of the solutions if you divide by x. So I think the 4-step process is like the thing to memorize, right? So I need to get it into standard form. If I divide by x now, I'm going to basically create, or the other problem, I suppose it's not even just losing a solution. If I did that, I've just made my life more miserable because I've made it a fraction. And so now that's the main reason why you wouldn't divide by x. What you would do is you would multiply this out and you would get 2x squared minus 5x, and then you'd bring the 12 across. And then now step 1 is complete. It is in standard form. But the journey has just begun. So keep swimming. Oh, for question. Okay. I'll see if I can scroll up a bit. Does it matter where you put the 12? Ideally, it does. You want to bring it to the one side so you have it in standard form. So step 2 is to factorize, and I'm going to suggest we use the trinomial method here to factorize this. Some of you who know about the quadratic formula, I understand you can use it here, but today we're focusing on how to factorize it manually. And for those who don't know the method I'm doing, look at video 1. I do a lot of examples in method 1. I mean, lesson 1. So let me make sure. What are my choices? 4 and 3 and 6 and 2 for 12. I think it's 4 and 3. This will be minus. And this will be plus. And so those two together give me that. So I get 2x plus 3, x minus 4 equals 0. Okay. For Tekel, what I would say is go back and re-watch Monday's video, because if you watch those examples and you just look every time and you ask yourself, what am I doing? That will help you. The other thing is that once you learn the quadratic formula, it's not the end of the world if you still struggle with this, but I mean, you do want to master it at some point. So I would say go back and look at Monday's video. Okay. And I'll keep today, you'll see this method coming up again and again at some points. Okay, the split. So what do we get? We get so my answers are 4 and yeah, so Amartle, you don't have to do it like this. I'm just showing you one of the methods, but if you're consistently getting the right answer, because there are a number of methods you could use, and so I don't want you to feel like you have to learn a whole new method if you're consistently getting them right. You can go with whatever method you like, as long as you're getting the right answer, is the honest truth. And that often happens in math. Okay. All right. Now, I just want to get a quick little feel from the class. Thumbs up if you're feeling okay. Thumbs down if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. So, Siyabonga, okay. Sorry, the things just disappeared. In maths, there's often more than one way to do something. So I'm just choosing to show this one method, and I'm not going to deviate from that right now. However, if you're consistently getting it right, I think this is the easiest method, but that everyone's different. So I'm not going to kind of say my way is better than yours type of thing. All right, let's try a different type of question. I want us to try and do this one over here. 2x squared equals 32. I want you to try and solve this quadratic equation for me. And while you're trying to solve that, I'm going to go to questions to Loyolo. Hi, Loyolo. What do you have to?
Hi, sir.
Hey.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
By the 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 equal to 0.
Yeah.
So I'm confused. Like, you see where we like factorize them, so.
Yeah.
At my school, they told me that like the two numbers that we multiply to get like the 12 must like when you add them, they must equal. Yeah, well, like when you add them, like they must like equal to the negative 5x. But now I'm seeing 3 and negative 4. Can you please explain that, sir?
Okay, so you do need the factors of 12, right? So if you look at this 12, I use them by using them as 3 and 4. And I also try to balance it with the minus 5. The difference is I have to deal with the 2 that's in front as well. So if we look at this, 2 times minus 4 is minus 8. And 1 times plus 3 is plus 3. These 2 together must give you the minus 5.
Oh,
does that make sense? So I put these things here, but I still have to balance to the minus 5. I do use the factors of 12. But if you look at this, okay, imagine 2x times x. That is just this bit times this bit. Okay, 2x times x is 2x squared. 2 times 1 gives me 2. Okay, now the next bit is that I have 2x times minus 4. That's this multiplication here. Okay, then the next one is 3 times 1x. Now 3 times 1x, let me actually just use this. 3 times 1x is just this bit here. And those two things have to balance to give me the minus 5x up here. That's why the sums need to add to minus 5. And then the last bit is the 12. Well, 3 times 4 will give me the 12. And so this bit over here is where the factors come from. So this cross, it still has to balance around here. Yeah. But you can use whatever, if your method that you've learned gives you the same answer, then it's fine. It's only if your method gives a different answer that it's your method, then there's something's going wrong there. Okay, let's try for number 4. So for number 4, what I'm going to suggest is that the following. I'm going to bring everything to one side. I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to take out a common factor of 2, and I get this. Oh, there's more than one way to do this equation as well. So some of you will square root, and that's also fine. What I thought of doing was, if I divide both sides by 2 at this point, I get, let's have a look, bring this down. Okay, so I'll show you the 2 ways here. If I bring this, I get x squared minus 16 is 0. I divide both sides by 2, and 0 divided by 2 is nothing. And then I have this is a difference of 2 squares. And then if I do this and I split it, I should get x is 4 or x is minus 4. Now, there is another way to do this, but I'm not sure how many people would have done it. And I think most people would have done it like this. If your answer was just 4, you would have lost 1 mark because there's 2 answers in this quadratic. Let's go to Paul. Paul, what is your question?
So if I just took the 2x squared is equal to 32, and then I automatically divided it by 2 on both sides.
Yeah.
And then it's going to give me x squared is equals to 16, then I take the 16 to the left and put it in standard form. Would that still be correct way of approaching this question?
Okay, it's still correct, but here's the thing you need to remember. When you square root something, there's 2 roots, plus and minus. Because remember when you get square root, there's 2 answers.
No, so I did not square root the question. I just divided by 2 on both sides. And then it gave me x squared is equals to 16. And then I took the 16 to the left. So it's x squared minus 16 is equals to 0. And then I used the front of 2 squares to continue.
Perfect. That's completely fine. Well done. That's with same answers. Okay. So the important thing is to get used to the process, because there's many different variations of how you can solve a question. And so obviously I'll try and do as many as I can, but we must rather focus on building up methods and processes that we know work for us, basically. Let's try one more before the break. I want everyone to try and do 2x squared minus 3x is 0. And then while you are working on that, I'm going to try and answer a few more of these questions. So, sir, why do you divide both sides by 2 is the one question. Because the 2 is just making my life difficult, I suppose, is the one way of saying it. You know, this 2 is just hanging out here. And when you solve an equation, you're really most interested in the variables. So it's not wrong to divide both sides by 2. And so when I do that, it goes away, and 0 divided by 2 just stays 0. And so life is just simpler, is my honest answer. Okay. Nkosi has asked, how many marks would a question like this be worth? So Nkosi, I think it would be worth about 4 marks based on what I've seen. Yeah. What are we getting for our answers here? Yeah, oh, I lost Siyabonga there. Cool. We'll do, Anele, we'll do. So Nkosi, when we mark in matric, because I mark matric papers often, there's different ways of doing it. Each way will have the marks, but you'll also get, if you get the right answer completely, you'll get full marks on both ways. So they do it in a logical way, is the honest way I can tell you. So each step would get a mark, yeah. Okay, let's have a look at this. Is it in standard form? I think so. So that step 1 is done. Step 2 is to factorize. And I think there's a common factor of x. And so I would write it like this. So that's step 2 taken care of. Step 3 would be to split it and make equal to 0. And then I would get this. X is equal to 0, or x is equal to 3/2. Okay, so my goal for today is just get you used to this 4-step process. I do think we need to keep practicing our factorizing skills. But yeah, I'm definitely seeing progress. And so I think we have all earned a break. Just give us a quick feel again for the class sentiment. Thumbs up if you're feeling generally on the right path. Thumbs down if you're feeling a bit like, whoosh. Okay. Okay, so there's a bit of a mixture. For those who are feeling a bit confused, remember that if you missed the first lesson, it's kind of understandable. And so I would recommend watching that first lesson. And also remember that we've just done the first half of today. And so the second half will also help you. Cool. Anele, what's your question? Go on, just hang in there, Andile. I promise. Repetition is everything.
I don't have questions, sir.
Yeah.
I don't have a question.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, let's go to our break then. So let us all stand up. If I can find my, let's see if I can find my Zoom bar. Where did it go? Okay, let's get everyone on their feet. We know that we're human and that humans aren't designed to sit forever. And let's be a bit silly. How silly can
Please
I be?
put on your cameras, guys. Let's see your lovely faces.
So back in the day when I used to be at rugby practice, we always used to have to start with like a small circle thing. So let's go like small circles, small circles. There we go. And then we hit slightly bigger circles. Make sure no one's too close to you. And then big circles. Big circles. Oh, doesn't that feel good? There we go. There we go. All right. And then let us stretch out our shoulders. Stretch out our shoulders. So this. And then let's do this one.
Shout out to all of you guys there investing in yourselves.
Exactly. And then just swing your arms a bit. Swing them so that they're nice and loose. And then shake them. Shake it out. Shake your hands out. And what else? Your neck, your poor neck is taking a beating. So just stretch that out to the left. And stretch it to the right. Oh, I'm feeling more human by the second. Here we go. Okay, and then should we do something to confuse our brain? Let's do the thing with the hand and the ear. So right hand on your nose, left hand on your right ear. Okay, so notice how your hands are, the one hand is on the ear, the one hand is on the nose. This hand on your ear is going to go to the nose. This hand on your nose is going to go to the opposite ear. See if you can do that. Now, see if you can bring it back. And see if you can switch between each. See if you can tell your brain to go faster. Levels can be.
I think I lost it.
Yeah, I've done this so many times that my brain's like, it's got it on autopilot. But it's forcing your brain to cross over from one hemisphere to the other. And so it's hard to do anything else. That's the point.
Shoot, I'm gonna need practice on that.
Well done. When you're in the class, you have all sorts of like things that you have to go to just in case you need to distract people. Okay. Let us do a brain break for a puzzle. So we're going to Old MacDonald's farm here, it seems. Tell me what a donkey times a duck minus a cow is. And this one does look on the surface, looks a bit easier than the last one we did. 10,
Already have the answers coming in.
Okay, so I think each donkey is 5, is what I see. And then, okay, so each of these has to be 2. The trick is each of them must be worth 1. So each of these is worth 1. And so if that's 1, now BODMAS says multiplication first. And so the final answer should be 49. Okay, so for those who got caught out, the 48, the reason you're getting 48 is just because you haven't noticed that there's like 2 cows in the sort of pen there, and on the last line there's just 1.
Nice
Cool.
one, guys.
Yeah, that wasn't quite as tasty as the last one, but it was not, you know, it's also because you're getting more experienced. But I'm going to start
to mix it up a bit.
Yeah, I've got a few more that I can break out that can, you know, I'll start varying it from next week. There's many more brain things to do. Okay, let's do another type of question that I haven't covered so far. Let me grab something like this one, because we do try and cover as many varieties as we can. So let's talk about this together first before we go off and try to do it. We have to solve this quadratic equation. And I would like someone to come online or someone in the chat to tell me what is different about this question. What is different about this type of question? Khomotso, let's go to you.
Sir, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. I think what's different about this one is that there is restrictions. So that there is restrictions, so that it's given that x is not equal to 0. And like you said before, it has to be in standard form. So I think so. So I think the 4 has to go to the other side.
Okay, so one of the things I agree with you, the restriction is there because you've got a fraction and you can't have x being 0. So that's off the table. You mentioned bringing the 4 across, completely agree. Do you have any techniques that help us deal with the fraction? Like, how could I maybe get rid of it if I needed to?
So I think that you can turn it into x to the power of -1, right?
Okay. So if we think of exponents, one of the things we did was to bring it to the top. However, in this section, it's not going to be that helpful. Okay. But we're gonna phone a friend, but you're on the right track. We have to do something about that x. Alyssa, what is your comment or suggestion?
So wouldn't we find an LCD?
Yeah.
for
Or another way of saying it is, I want to multiply through by the basically the lowest common multiple of the denominators, or an LCD. So the way I think of it is, what would knock out the x? Can't you just multiply everything by x? So if we multiply both sides of this equation by the same thing, I was thinking we could multiply this side by x, and we could also multiply this side by x. Because when we deal with equations, we often have, as long as we do the same thing to both sides, it's fine. So notice my little green x hanging out over here. I want everyone to try and expand this by multiplying this into the bracket. And tell me what you get in the chat. So what I'm saying is you multiply both sides by x. And the reason you do that is you want to get rid of the fraction there.
Keep going, guys.
Take away the blue bits. They're a bit confusing. So the x's do cancel out. Well done, yes. So the x's cancel out. And so you're left with 3x squared plus 1 equals 4x. And now, in order to get it into standard form, I'm going to bring the minus 4x to the other side. And now, an equation that looked a little bit like different is now back in a much more digestible form. And so I'd like you to try and solve this for me. Now. But the main idea was the yellow bit, this idea that we multiplied both sides by x, because that's what got rid of the fraction. Let's see if I can. All right, so this first part is quite, and this is 1 and 1, because look, and also once you get very comfortable with these, sometimes people do leave out the step where you go equals to 0, but you just want to make sure that you know what you're doing before you start leaving steps out. So the answers I get are 1/3 or 1, or yeah. And we're going to come back to this later in the lesson, but that is a quadratic equation with basically with fractions. And that's another variation of quadratic equations. You do need to have LCMs. In this case, the LCM was x. Also notice none of my x's, the answers weren't 0. If an answer was x is 0, I'd have to reject it because of the restriction. Okay, nicely done. Thumbs up if I can continue. Thumbs down if you like, kind of hold on. Okay. Just want to get a vote. Okay. Okay, let's try another type of question. So in this one, we might have to do this together as well. So you have to solve for a. And I'm happy that the 0 is on the right-hand side, but I'm feeling a bit about the left-hand side. And I was hoping that somebody could maybe help me with some suggestions about how we could factorize this part here. What do you notice? Do you notice anything, any tips or things that could help us? Let's go to Tebogo. Tebogo, what do you think?
I think we should try grouping because in the brackets, a minus 1 is the same. So,
okay. So you've noticed there's a highest common factor of a minus 1. I think,
yes.
Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest is everybody does this and then tries to figure out what the other bracket is. And once you figured out what the other bracket is, if you could try and find the answer to this equation and put it in the chat. So thank you for that tip. That was very helpful. In fact, this is a grouping question. And grouping is just like, I think of it as upgraded highest common factor. So I agree. It's going to be 2a plus 3. So what are our final answers going to be? So there's the split. So Andile, basically what we check is step 1 was to check it's all on one side and the other side is 0, or sort of standard form. Step 2 was the factorizing. And the technique for factorizing that we used in this question is called a grouping, or I suppose you could just call it highest common factor because the a minus 1 is kind of staring you in the face. And then step 3 is the split, which I'm doing now, and step 4 is solving. So we get a is 1, and then we get minus 3 over 2 as my answers. Okay, and so hopefully the part where it splits is starting to look very, very familiar to you now. Where I think we need a lot more practice is the factorizing part. Yeah, Siyabonga, let's go to you.
Hi, sir.
Hey.
So I wanted to ask, would the answer still be the same if we like multiplied inside the brackets?
It would, yeah. So if you did this, so you went 2a squared minus 2a plus 3a minus 3 equals 0. Okay, what you notice now is that these are like terms. And so you get 2a squared plus a minus 3 is 0. That's a trinomial that you can factorize, and it will give you exactly the same answer. Does that help, Siyabonga? No,
Yes,
good question. I'm sure you were not the only one thinking that. So the good news is, again, you would get the same answer, and it would just, yeah, and don't feel bad about that. Like any method that you choose is not, as long as it's getting you the same answer, it's fine. That is something you kind of have to get comfortable with. Okay, let's look at, I want something with a bit of fractions to sort of end off this lesson for today. Oh, could I? Okay, so let me go and grab that one so that everyone who wants me to kind of continue with that, I can do that. And then the rest of us can try start on this one. Oh, what am I doing? Okay. So for everyone else, I'd like you to try and start working on this, solving this quadratic equation. And I want to suggest that you have to deal with the fractions. So you need to think about how you're going to deal with the fractions. I would encourage those who feel like they know to put some suggestions in the chat to help those who feel a bit rusty. I will come along now and help where I can. But I'm just going to have a look at this trinomial in the meantime. Okay, so over to you guys. It's important that we know how to deal with quadratics that have some fractions in them. Then we have a 3. So what will that be? So yeah, this is one of those ones where it's also, there's two ways of doing it again. Some of you will make the denominators the same. Some of you will cross multiply. And both of those suggestions are correct. There's two ways of doing this, and I've seen this in many schools. So the one way is cross multiplying. The other one is to make the denominators the same. Those are both valid methods. I'll maybe try and do both of them here if I can. But for now, let's just fly solo for a bit, and then I'll come along and help. I would add, though, there's restrictions. X cannot be 1 and X cannot be -7, because I can see that would cause division by 0. So the good news is both methods end up at the same point. Eh? So we're not done, but I'm just showing you that method 1 and method 2 both end up at the point where I've drawn blocks around. But we still have more work to do from that point. What do you think we need to do once we're at the point of the block? What still needs to happen? Does anybody have any ideas? Yeah, Jada, you need to multiply out or FOIL. Yeah, you need to multiply out these. So let's try and do that. And then yeah, so these are two different, the methods that you can use to get to the same place. I realize this one is a bit tougher, but this is also because we include some different stuff for the standard class on purpose. So because we're running out of time here, I'm going to help you guys a bit more than I wouldn't have rushed you this much, but time is running out. So the trinomial I get is x squared minus 8x plus 13. So where did you get the terms from? What did you do to get the terms? Okay. In the cross multiplying method, all I said was the x plus 7 was divide on the right-hand side. And so on the left-hand side, when it came across, it became multiplication. The x minus 1 was divide, and when it came across, it became a multiplication. The other way of doing it was to multiply the top and bottom here by x plus 7, and here on the side by x minus 1. And then it made the denominators the same. And then once the denominators were the same, you could ignore them and just focus on the purple stuff. But again, these are two different methods. You don't need to do both.
Mr. Is.
Oh, I made a mistake. Thank you.
I'm
trying to do extreme multitasking here. It's not good for your brain health. Well spotted, everyone.
Nice work, guys.
Go team. Okay, let's see if we can finish this off. Okay, and so my final answers are x is 5 or x is 3. So the other question was, how did I get 8x? So what I did was I moved this 5x to the other side, and there already was a minus 3x hanging out. And so when the 5x came across, it became minus 5x. Okay. Lebo, I'm aware that we're pretty much done for time. Can you put the link in the chat? I will answer a few more questions because I know today's session has been packed. So I don't want people to feel too kind of if they want to ask questions, but at the same time, some of you may feel comfortable going off to the quiz and yeah, enjoy it. And yeah, let's go to Alyssa. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, sir.
Hey.
Sir, how did you get negative 8x? I got positive 8x.
Okay, what might have happened is if you took everything to the other side, It's possible you got minus x squared plus 8x minus 15. Was that your
Yes, sir.
trinomial? Okay, no problem.
Yes, sir.
That's equivalent. It's an equivalent trinomial, and you'll get the same answer as me.
Oh, okay, sir. I understand now.
Perfect. And that does happen because you could have moved it to the other side and all the signs would have changed.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
Pleasure.